YouTube have covered it already, both ASMR and non-ASMR. The beauty of these videos is that everyone will probably cover it a little bit differently, so hopefully I do that. But that's the case that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go through from the very beginning. I'm going to set the scene for you and lay down the timeline of events. And I like when people do missing persons cases as well, because, you know, if it's something that's not solved, it's never a bad idea to talk about it, because you never know. These are cases that, you know, the story keeps developing, and so I think it's good to still keep the information like out there and relevant for something that was never solved. Before we get started, I see so many comments all the time about Maya scaring everybody. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you, because she's laying down. She is in this chair. Oh, there's her head. She's going to pop up and down throughout the video, I'm sure. So I'm telling you guys now so that you're prepared, so that she doesn't scare you. She's there, she is napping, but every once in a while she's going to want to see what I'm doing. So she'll pop her head up every now and then. Okay, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. So I have my notes down here. I am probably going to be looking at them a little more often than I usually do, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't feel that great today. I don't feel like sick, but you know, you just don't feel yourself. Like, I have a weird headache thing going on, and I don't know, so rather than make my brain struggle to remember things, I'm just going to be looking down at my notes probably a little bit more. The second reason for that is that there are a lot of names and a lot of times, because I'm literally going to give you like a timeline, so it's just a lot more to remember. That even if I was feeling 100% today, it would be a lot for me to try to remember. So I hope that's not like too distracting or anything, but if you see me looking down right here, that's what I'm looking at. Alright, so I don't even remember if I said the name of the person that we're talking about. Jeez. Today we are covering the case of Madeleine McCann. Madeleine McCann went missing almost 14 years ago. She was, at the time, 3 years old, and she was on vacation with her family and some family friends in Portugal. They were from the UK on vacation in Portugal. So like I said, it is an ongoing story. Of course, her parents, all they've ever wanted is answers, so they have continued looking and searching. Many at this point assume that she is unfortunately no longer alive, but again, we never know. And this case is actually considered one of the most heavily reported missing persons cases in modern history. So that's why I said, you know, some of you may actually have heard of it before. I'm sure you have if you're really into true crime. So let me set the scene for you. So Madeleine and her family, like I said, were from the UK on vacation in Portugal. Her parents were named Kate and Jerry McCann. They were also with her two siblings who were twins. They were 2 years old, so a year younger than her. And they were with a group of family friends and their children, and I'll get into their names in a second. And like I said, Madeleine was 3 years old. Her birthday was May 12th. She was born in 2003. She went missing a couple of days before her birthday, so she was nearly a few days away from being 4 years old. She was blonde and had bluish green eyes. She was a beautiful little girl. So the trip consisted of 9 adults and 8 children between all of the families. So besides the McCanns, there was Fiona and David Payne and their 2 kids, and then Fiona's mother, Diane, was also with them. Then there was Jane Tanner and her partner Russell O'Brien, and then Matthew and Rachel Oldfield and their daughter. The group arrived in Portugal. They stayed in Praia da Luz. I hope I said that right. In Portugal on April 28th, 2007, and they were staying for a 7-night spring break trip. They all stayed in this resort kind of thing. So there was a pool, there was tennis courts, there was restaurants, things like that, like a typical resort. And the building that they stayed in was a series of apartments. It was 2 floors, but had a bunch of apartments. And so the McCanns were in apartment 5A. Then there was Matthew and Rachel, who were in the very room right next door. Jane and Russell were 2 doors down from them, so 3 doors down from the McCanns. And the Paynes and the mother, Diane, were 2 floors down. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, a floor down. 1 floor down. It was a 2-story apartment, so they were on the 1st floor. Everyone else was on the 2nd floor. So they were all relatively, close to each other. Now let's talk about the McCann's apartment specifically so that you can kind of get an idea of what we're working with here. So their apartment had sliding glass doors in the back, like their back patio area that overlooked the resort's pool, the tennis courts, and kind of in the distance you could sort of see the restaurant, and it was like a tapas bar. The patio doors, those doors in the back, could be accessed from the public street. So it's not like the resort was secluded in any way. It was right there up against the public. But there was a small gate with a set of steps that met the public street that you had to go through, and then that would lead you to their balcony and their living room. Once you went through the balcony, went through the doors, it was their living room. The McCann children slept in the bedroom closest to the front door, which it is noted that the parents said that they kept it locked. It had 1 window, it was about waist high, and the parents always kept the shutters, the window, and the curtains closed throughout the entire trip, what they said. Madeleine slept in a single bed that was closest to the door, farthest from the window. There was another bed that was not used, and then in the center of the room, the 2-year-old twins slept in little travel cots in the middle of the room. So that is the setting. So the actual day of the disappearance was May 3rd, 2007. It started as a normal day for the most part. But what is very interesting to note is that morning over breakfast, Madeleine asked her parents, "Why didn't you come in last night when," her brother was never named, but when my brother and I were crying. Mind you, she's 3 years old. And that's what she asked her parents that morning. "Why didn't you come in when we were crying last night?" The parents didn't think anything of it. Maybe they said, "Oh, we didn't hear you crying," or whatever. I don't know what they said, but they didn't think anything of it. After the disappearance, of course, they thought about it again, and they were like, does that mean that somebody was in the apartment? Did they see something? Did somebody approach the window? Something must have spooked them. So that was the night before the disappearance. But they went through their normal day. The resort had a kids club that the kids went to early in the day. Then the McCanns had lunch themselves in their own apartment, and then they all went to the pool. And that's where the last photo of Madeleine was ever taken. It was taken at 2:29 p.m. by the pool. And they stayed at the pool until around 6 p.m. Took the kids back, bathed them, whatever, got them ready for bed, and put them to bed around 7 p.m. Madeleine was that she had. So, at around 8:30, pretty much every night, the parents would leave the resort to go have dinner at the resort's restaurant and tapas bar. Which, right away, makes me nervous. I don't have children, I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but the idea of leaving my kids alone sleeping kind of scares me, because anything could happen, but it's not me, so I'm not judging. Maybe it was a different time, I don't know, it was only 2007, so it wasn't that long ago, but anyway. So they would go and they would meet the other adults around 8:30 every night to go to the bar. Not the bar, well, the restaurant and bar, yeah. So again, it was part of the resort, so it wasn't like it was super far away. It was about 160 feet away from the restaurant. You could see the top of their apartment building, but you couldn't see the doors, but you could see the actual building. So I guess that made them feel like, oh, we're not that far away. And they would go in shifts. They made like a schedule to go check on the kids every half hour or so. Now, here's the thing. This drives me crazy. So, the patio doors that I was telling you about before in the back that are like facing the public street, you could only lock them from the inside. So the adults, knowing that they were going to keep going back in to check on the kids, left the doors unlocked. They left all the shades drawn, lights off, everything, but the door itself was actually unlocked. So, the adults, okay, so here's the thing, okay. Sorry, I told you I'm a little scatterbrained today, but we're getting through it. So, the adults of the trip had told the resort staff, hey, at 8:30, please reserve this same table for us for dinner every night for the last 4 nights of the trip. And so that's what they had been doing. And a note about that was left in a little like notepad thing at the pool reception area. And that note also explained that the kids were left sleeping in the apartment. And so after the disappearance, Madeleine's parents believe that the abductor probably saw that note laying around. Whether it was staff or not, you know, we don't know. They didn't say what they thought about that, but they do believe that the abductor saw that note and knew, okay, the parents are going to be gone at 8:30 for the night or for the next few hours. The kids are left unattended in the apartment. So, again, they went to dinner at 8:30. 9:05, Mr. McCann was the first one to make the rounds and go check on the kids. Now, they didn't always check on everyone's kids. A lot of times they would just check on their own. But we'll get into that. So, at 9:05, 35 minutes later, after arriving at the restaurant, he made the first check to his apartment. The kids were asleep. Everything was quiet. But he did notice that he remembered leaving their bedroom door slightly ajar, like cracked a little bit. When he had gone back, the door was wide open. So he thought that was strange. But he, again, didn't really think anything of it. Closed the door again like he had it and went back to the restaurant. Now, 25 minutes later, Mrs. McCann was going to go do her own check at 9:30, but Matthew, one of the adults that was there with them, said, oh, I'm gonna go check on my kids, so like I'll check on yours too, don't worry about it. So he noticed the same thing, that the kids' door was left wide open as well, which he thought was kind of strange. But he had listened, he heard no noise in there, and just closed the door again and left the apartment without looking far enough into the room to see whether Madeleine or any of the kids were still there. He just kind of like listened, didn't hear anything, closed the door, and went back to the restaurant. So people did think that was a little bit weird early on, but nothing ever came of that. So it just kind of makes them look bad a little bit. But so then that was at 9:30. Half an hour later, Mrs. McCann went and did a check of her own, and it was later determined that Madeleine was probably taken just a few minutes before this check. So she came through the patio doors, as they had been doing, and noticed once again that the children's door was wide open. As she approached the door, it slammed shut, almost as if there was a draft pushing the door. And it was then that she noticed that the bedroom window and its shutters were open. Madeleine's blanket and stuffed cat were still in the bed, but Madeleine was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. McCann briefly searched the whole apartment to see whether Madeleine had crawled anywhere or, was hiding anywhere. Couldn't find her anywhere, so she then ran back to the restaurant screaming, "Madeleine's gone, somebody's taken her." And it's because that window was open. Remember I told you Matthew had gone to check on her half an hour later, and so they originally thought that he maybe passed her to someone through the window, but again, nothing ever came of that. Around 10 minutes later, Mr. McCann had sent Matthew, that same guy, to the resort reception desk to have them call the police and to tell them what was going on. And then at 10:30, the resort went into missing person protocol. They activated because most resorts have something like that, something that has a lot of children and families. They have to have a protocol like that. So around 10:30, that protocol was activated, and 60 staff members and guests started searching the resort everywhere for Madeleine, and they searched until 4:30 a.m. They brought in search and rescue dogs. They interviewed people at the resort, but later it came out, and even the resort and police admitted that there were a lot of errors early on in their investigation. They did not interview everyone because certain people came forward afterwards and said, well, I was a guest there, I was there that night and no one interviewed me. So no, not everyone was interviewed. They also didn't fully isolate the crime scene. So people were coming in and out, touching things, So any evidence that could have been there could have very well been destroyed and unusable. So they done messed up there for sure, and they admitted that they did. So now, one of the very important aspects of this case that was a big deal for a while was that Jane, one of the women on the trip, noted that around 9:15 she had went to check on her own kids. This was 15 minutes before Matthew went to check on Madeleine. She went and checked on her own kids at 9:15, walking past the McCann's patio doors, of course, because they all stayed in the same resort or the same apartment building. And she noted that she remembered seeing a man around 9:15 on the public street on the side of the McCann's patio doors, walking, carrying a child, carrying a little girl. And she was wearing pink and white, similar to what Madeleine was wearing, and looked to be around Madeleine's age. So this was a huge part of the investigation. It gave authorities a timeline to work with. And so, yeah, I wish I had more information about how that went, but I know how it ended, and he actually just turned out to be an innocent man that was carrying his daughter home. But they thought that that was him for a long time, but it turned out to not be the case. But right away, the McCanns went into serious search mode. They went public with it. Posters were made. The UK authorities, because that's where they were from. The UK authorities and the Portuguese authorities worked together on this case. And then there was a statement released very early on by Mr. McCann that says, quote, "Words cannot describe the anguish and despair that we are feeling as the parents of our beautiful daughter, Madeleine. We request that anyone who may have information relating to Madeleine's disappearance, no matter how trivial, contact the Portuguese police and help us get her back safely. Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home to her mommy, daddy, brother, and sister." They also, like, 12 days after her disappearance, they started a fund. It was called Madeleine's Fund, Leaving No Stone Unturned. And that was, again, 12 days after she went missing. And that fund was used to, further the investigation. It was also used to contribute to reward money for anyone who had her, like if they were holding her ransom or something. And it gathered so much attention, like nationwide attention, further than that. And 80 million people visited that website, the fund website. So, like, everyone knew about this. Everyone was looking for her. The next day, May 8th, Portuguese police revealed, like, they had to put out a public statement, and they said they believed that Madeleine was still alive, and in Portugal, just with the person that abducted her, but they believed that she was still alive. It took 100 days for them to actually reveal she may not be alive. Those were their public statements. Now, at one point, police had actually played with the idea that Madeleine had accidentally died in the apartment by, like, a freak accident or something, and the parents tried to cover it up. And the parents were actually given, like, suspect status. They were suspects in September of 2007. But that was lifted in July of 2008 because the case was archived due to lack of evidence. The case was later reopened a bunch of times. There were different suspects, but nothing ever concrete was ever found or solved, unfortunately. Her parents, though, did get a lot of hate in the tabloids, on social media, especially as the years went on, especially on Twitter. That was noted in the article that I was reading. Because, there were some things that I think that they could have done differently that would have, changed the outcome, as in not have her abducted. And I don't want to say that because I don't want to judge. Again, I'm not a parent. I'm not them. I don't want to put on blame. I can't imagine what they went through and are still going through. To just never know, like, what happened to your baby. Just, like, I can't even imagine. But, like, leaving the door unlocked and just, like, leaving them in the apartment in the first place. Like, granted, I know that they were close by, but I don't know. That would make me nervous. So, I don't know. But they did get a lot of hate for that. I do know that for a fact. So, their parents, or her parents, really went through it. So, yeah. But anyway, there's a lot of information on this case. Like, if you really wanted to go through and read about all the suspects and all the dead ends that they had, there is a lot of that if you want to read it. But if I was gonna talk about, like, some of that, I would have had to have committed and talked about all of it, and then this would have been, like, hours long. This case had a lot of information, to the point where even I got a little overwhelmed at one point and had to take a break last night when I was doing my research. It's just a lot of names, a lot of times, a lot of legal stuff, that when it comes to legal stuff, I don't know what any of that means. So, yeah, so that is all the information I have for you on the Madeleine McCann case. Thank you to the person who requested, or there was a couple of you you. I'm sorry, I should have saved your names. I always forget to do that. But I hope that you guys enjoyed. Oh, I forgot to say there have been multiple like sketches and like graphic artists that have made those. There's a name for it and I don't know what it is, but it like shows what she may look like as she gets older. There were a couple of those made. There were a couple, I think, like when she was 6, and then there was another one of like what she would look like as she got older. I'll try to find one and I'll put it on the screen, because I think those are important as well, because you never know, she could very well be somewhere. I hope she is. So I don't know, but anyway, that is all the information I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed. Leave requests